Well, hi. Okay, so certain people wanted to know how it was that I knew that I was an actor with no doubt. I'll tell you a story of how I discovered, and it was mostly through, growing up obviously in that like teenager sort of like very unsure, or at least I was. I don't want to generalize and say that like everyone was, but for me at least. But I remember like being in school and it was a really big deal, like what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and especially like growing up with like Lady Gaga, it was sort of like your career is like a really big thing, and that was always like very much instilled in me. And so I just, it was very important, and I was very important for me to sort of find the right thing and something that I was passionate about and that I enjoyed doing and that I really really loved, because it's your entire life, and I want to like love what I do and have it be something that I actually wanted to do and that I found value in, etc., etc. So all of these things, and yeah, I didn't want to. I hated being like stuck, or the idea of being stuck. Like school for me was not good because I like just being in a system or any kind of like insane like structure for the rest of my life. I could never like, that's literally my worst nightmare. Like I've been so poor because I refuse to go there, which is like because I'm so the crazy like artist life of not wanting to give up and give in and like, pick something that I could do because I was smart, I was good in school. I just like very stubborn and like had my, sights set on something else. But yeah, so I remember just like not knowing and really having no idea what I wanted to do. And my family actually, they were sort of the ideas that they had were like, oh, like she's really good at like math and science, but she also is really good at art. So they were thinking like architecture, and I remember being like, that sounds like awful, and I didn't want to be in school for forever. I want to live my life. Like what the hell? So I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I sort of got like pushed and forced into university for a year. But what I did do is I'm very conscious of like how I operate and how I am. So I I did like save up, and I went over to London and over to Europe for a few months, and just purely to like separate myself from anyone who could potentially influence my decision. And it was there that I sort of like was able to admit to myself that, oh, this is the thing I want to do, because acting for me was such a, like movies or TV or anything like that was so like revered and idealized in my head as like superior to me, and I could never, felt very like I had trouble saying like, oh, I'm an actor, I want to be an actor, because it feels like that crazy dream or whatever, especially like coming from my family. That's a lot of what it was. But yeah, obviously I work hard. I wanted something that I really could like put my entire self into and that I would excel very well at. And I was always like, we grew up very active and like doing everything, and I was always interested, always wanted to learn and grow, be able to travel for work and do things in like different locations and learn about different cultures and like learn new skills and stuff like that. And so to me that was, it was just like the perfect thing altogether. But it's the things, like once I had sort of decided, so to speak, or admitted to myself that that's sort of what I was, it wasn't until I like looked back and thought back to like certain things that like, just certain things come up and come back to you when you sort of decide. And there was this one moment in particular that I really remember in French class one time, and my teacher had asked the whole class what they wanted to be when they grew up. And I didn't say an actor. I don't remember what I said, but there was one of my friends said that she wanted to be an actor because it was fun, and she could be something different every movie, or everything that she did, like you'd have a different career. And I remember like my reaction to that, my internal reaction was like I was like, no, you can't, like I was like almost like mad and like angry. I was like, no, like you would never be an actor. I didn't say it out loud, but that's just what I thought. And I remember thinking like, that's such a little part of like what it is. And I was like, uh but yeah, it was that very like just strong reaction that I had to that really, I don't know, that just like you just know, it's like that thing inside you. It's just very knowing before I knew, basically. And then I remember like my French teacher, like she could tell that I was upset and she came and like asked me. She's like, "Well, what would you want to do?" And I think I spoke about just wanting to eradicate cancer for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't know anyone that had cancer and I didn't, but for me it was just such a big thing that I was just like, this is something that is plaguing our race, and like everyone knows it's awful, so why don't we just all, like, everyone hasn't humanity like put all of its resources together and just like get that over with, because it's everyone knows how awful it is. And I remember being very passionate about that for some, like, specifically, and to me that's what like celebrity was, and that was like the whole purpose of it at like I was like 14 or something, which very like adamant. Yeah, and then looking back, I used to watch Vanessa Marcel and like all of her soap opera stuff. And I remember coming out of that and just like watching her do life, it gives you more confidence to be able to live, you know what I mean? And that was sort of the chain reaction. But I remember like watching, being obsessed with her character in Las Vegas because she was like very strong and independent and sort of like very much like a go-getter. Um, like that kind of character. Like worked all the time and stuff like that. Yeah, and I remember like I was like very weird. I remember going to school and deliberately like trying to find ways. I remember like acting at school. You know what I mean? Like in my real life, I remember like trying to like find ways to like make everyday school be like a TV show, and I would try and find like places where I could like say some of her lines that I knew and like some of the things she said in the show, and people were like, "What the fuck are you trying? Like, why are you being like?" I would I would like over dramatize like certain things, or like if I fell in gym class, I'm not even joking. Like if I fell in gym class, I would like be extra dramatic about it and like make a huge deal and like, oh, but it's like so real. It's like a very like internal thing. But anyways, but on like a larger scale, as another thing, that's pretty much it. As another, it just ticked all the boxes for me because I knew that it had to um like do a lot of things. So I'm pretty sure that, but the biggest thing for me, like especially as I got a little bit older, was because I'm so ridiculously like emotional. I'm literally like I could start crying on a dime. Like it's just like I'm it's hard for me to be any kind of like have any kind of like normal life or normalcy. And I remember this like um point in like acting school where I can't, it was like during some class or something, and I just started crying and I started bawling my eyes out, and the rest, and in acting school like that's like a big fucking deal, I guess. For me it wasn't, but I remember everyone else being like in awe and in shock and like looking at me and being like, "How are you doing this?" And I was like, what? And I was just like bawling my eyes out. So to me, it's mostly that I need the space, like I need the space to be able to express myself and be expressive. Otherwise, it's like not good. So I just knew that that's like what I was. I needed that space where it was allowed, not only allowed but encouraged. Like that was a huge deal for me because I was always, that's just how I am. And uh acting school was that was the first time where I felt like very much validated and like, oh my gosh, I'm going in the right direction, and this is, it just got very emotional, etc. And I was sort of like praised for like being myself, just being myself, and I was like I just felt really good, and it's just like very nice. So yeah, that's my thing. And like everything else too, it seems like just like actors, obviously not all actors are famous, but like you can be famous from acting. So I was like, okay, that's solved. I don't have to think about that. It's like, thank God. And then yeah, just being able and being able to like connect with people, being able to do that, and where it's all like, yeah, where it's all like written down. It's like it's predetermined of like what kind of relationship you're gonna have, so you don't have to worry and like be insecure and stuff like that. But yeah, I understand that too. But yeah, now it's just like, it's like you're allowed it's just like, here's a space where you're literally, that's your job, you're allowed to like be crazy and like go off and do this thing, or like have someone and like be very close to people, and it's just like people, and I'm like obsessed with people. So I also just remember like constantly having this, because it is an art form as well, like film and cinematography and like creating the whole thing and using everything that you have. It's such an art form, but it's like I wanted to be part of the art, which is like insane. And like I love artists and connecting with artists. Like that's the only reason that I like model at all, because it was like a form of creative expression. And I also love fashion, so but that's in with like film as well. It's like sometimes the wardrobe is just as important as whatever the actors are saying. It's just, that's what it is. That's all it is. Yay. Okay. Well, thank you for watching.